All right, we're gonna see if this works. I think this is the fourth time now. We've been trying to test out different webinar software, and we have had very little luck. We have gone between a few different ones now, and it has just been a bear. So thank you all for bearing with me. I'm sorry that I'm now 15 minutes late and a little frantic because I've been trying to troubleshoot this issue. So if you can see and hear me, I know there might be a little bit of a lag here, but let me know in the chat feature. And I know I've said this a couple times already, so my apologies to those of you who have had to bear with me this whole time. Use that chat feature. Let me know that you can see and hear me okay. That I would greatly appreciate it. But I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and get started. And hopefully the replay will work too, just in case there's any lag or any trouble. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Lauren Hooker, and I'm the graphic designer and blogger behind Ellen Company. And each week I've been hosting Twitter chats, calling them the L Chat, and they've been great for just interaction between other business owners and bloggers. But I decided to switch things up a little bit from the regular Twitter chat and take it into a webinar for a couple reasons. We have followers that are in all different time zones, and so Eastern Standard Time at 8 p.m. each Thursday, I was missing out on a lot of different people who wanted to join in. And good, it looks like I'm live and it's working, so the chat is coming through. Hooray! Thank you guys for letting me know. I really appreciate it. Okay. So back to what I was saying. For the webinar, I wanted to be able to record it and make it available to people later on. So this is just really informal, as you can tell from our technical difficulties this morning. But I just wanted to take time to talk about topics that are relevant to you as a creative entrepreneur. And one of the biggest things that have helped my blog and business, and I've seen it help so many others, is blogging. So today we're going to focus on growing your blog traffic, boosting your blog traffic, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. So feel free to use that chat feature like I said. Okay, great. I'm so glad that you all are joining in. Thank you, Chelsea and Ashley. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me and that everything's all right on your end. Again, thank you for bearing with me. I'm sorry for the headache. But feel free to use that chat feature to chat with each other, to ask questions. I'm going to take breaks every now and then for a little Q&A. And so that's there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into a little screen share. And you should be able to see my slides now. So like I said, we're going to focus on increasing your blog traffic. And today we're going to focus more on actionable strategies that you can do on your end of the blog to gain more traffic, rather than social media strategies or any other marketing technique like your newsletter. All of those are great for funneling in traffic to your blog, but today we're going to focus more on what you can do on the other end within your blog content specifically. So first, why blog? You wouldn't be joining in if you didn't already understand the importance of blogging for your creative business. And you probably already understand many of the benefits. But today I'm just going to run through a couple of the helpful benefits just so we can have it in mind, because it's going to come in handy throughout this L chat. The first benefit is that blogging drives people to your home base. Your home base is your website. And that's where all of the action takes place for your business. So if people want to purchase a product, they come to your website. If people want to learn more about you, they go to your About page on your website. If people want to contact you to work with you, they come to your website. So your website is where all of the action happens, unlike social media where people have to click a link in order to get to your About page or your FAQs or your shop or your contact page. So blogging, or your blog, is already on your website. So it's easy for people, like this screenshot here, it's easy for people to go straight from your blog and see all of the other things that you offer, whether it's in your sidebar or your top navigation. So if people land on the Ellen Company blog, they can easily tab over to services to see my design work, to book a consultation with me, whatever it might be. So your blog does the same for your website. It funnels people into the home base where they can purchase your products and book your services, which is always the end goal for your business. Secondly, blogging showcases and validates your expertise. On your blog, you're able to talk about topics that are relevant to your ideal audience, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but you can share what you know. So your portfolio shows your work, but you get to demonstrate the knowledge behind it through your blog. So for example, I originally started blogging for Ellen Company to gain clients for branding services. So I started writing about the do's and don'ts of logo design, or why and how I brand photos, or how I even design a brand and website in just 2 weeks. And by sharing these things, I was starting to earn the trust of people who might be interested in working with me. So by sharing that I know about logo design, that I don't just design pretty things, there's always a reason behind them, and that I have a degree in it. So it kind of validates my expertise and positions me as an expert. And I wish I had gotten the statistic before I jumped on here. But there's a statistic out there that says that 80% of people will take your word for it if you're writing on a blog. If you're sharing content, they all automatically see you as an expert. So that's a huge advantage, especially when you have a creative small business and you're trying to gain clients or customers. The third is that blogging attracts potential clients and customers. So when you're sharing your expertise and you're sharing things that are relevant to your potential clients and customers, it keeps them coming back. If people are sharing your posts and it is something that's relevant and helpful to your ideal client or customer, they might click through and read your post and hopefully eventually contact you to work with you or buy one of your products. So it's a great way to funnel in your potential clients and customers. Blogging also gives people a reason to return to your site regularly. If you had a storefront or brick and mortar shop, there's a chance that people wouldn't come back to your site or your shop day after day. But with your website, if you're blogging consistently, and even if you're blogging weekly, you're keeping people coming to your site. You're encouraging them to come into that storefront every day. So blogging gives people a reason to return time and time again. If you don't have a blog, chances are people are going to stop by your site every blue moon when they think of it. So blogging is a huge benefit to your website and your website traffic. So for example, Timothy Cross is always sharing my content on Twitter, and I'm really appreciative of it. So Timothy, if you're ever tuning into this, thank you so much for sharing Ellen Company blog posts. But he says in this tweet, I always love reading Lorna Liz Hook's blog, great resource for any growing business. So I'm really thankful for that, and I'm thankful that Timothy comes back week after week to read my content. He wouldn't be coming to my site otherwise, probably, if I just had a home page, an about page, and a services page and a contact page. The blog keeps him coming back to Ellen Company repeatedly. Blogging also helps you organically market your products and services. When you're sharing blog posts about your products and services and you're not overly selling, it's just coming naturally as you're creating content, it doesn't seem as salesy. So for example, when I was getting ready to launch the Adobe Illustrator e-course, and this is actually, I've gone through it 3 times now, but before I even announced it, I started to blog about topics where I could talk about Adobe Illustrator. So for example, 10 things I can't blog about, or blog without, excuse me. I intentionally added Adobe Illustrator in there because I'm using it all the time for my blog to create graphics, to do website updates. So I was able to talk about Adobe Illustrator then for how I create graphics for my blog and business. That was kind of a no-brainer. And then a week before I launched the course, I think it may have even been the day before, I shared 40 ways that business owners and bloggers can use Adobe Illustrator. So I was kind of planting the seeds in their head. So blogging gives you an advantage in that way. You don't have to come off as being salesy to pitch your products or your services. You can do it naturally and organically through your blog posts. And then one of the last benefits we'll cover is that blogging helps spread the word about your site through shares. So when people come to your site and they find helpful and beneficial content, there's a great chance that they're going to share it if they find it helpful. Pinterest is one of our greatest sources of traffic day after day. We usually get around 30% of our blog traffic from Pinterest, and it doesn't even come from me sharing the posts on my Pinterest account. It usually comes from Ellen Company readers pinning our blog graphics that link back to our site. And so when you're sharing helpful content, people can't help but share it on their social media accounts. So it's great for spreading the word, and you don't even have to do the work, which is even better. So Melissa Griffin of the Nectar Collective is a friend of mine, and she says, "This girl always brings the good stuff. Love these creative content ideas for your email list." So Melissa shared my post to her audience. There might be some people in there that don't follow along with Ellen Company, and she just exposed Ellen Company to her audience and new people through one of my blog posts. So blogging is great for driving traffic back to your site. So I want to cover some common blogging pitfalls too that might be keeping people from coming to your site right now or coming back to your site. But before I do, if those of you tuning in have any questions, I'm going to take a quick break from the presentation to answer those. So feel free to use that chat feature. If you're still with me, if I didn't drive you off from all the confusion of today's webinar and the webinar software, feel free to just let me know, even if you can let me know that you still hear me and you're still tuning in. That would be awesome. And I'll wait just a minute. I think there's a lag. Also, feel free if you have any questions as I go along or any thoughts or anything to add, use that chat feature as well. I would really appreciate it. And I'm sure the other people tuning in would love that too. All right, one more minute before I keep moving. And I'm moving a little fast too because we got started a little late. All right, well, if you think of any questions, feel free to use that chat feature. I'm going to jump back to sharing my screen. Let's see here. All right. So, common blogging pitfalls. The first is focusing on yourself. I say this a lot on the blog, but readers can be selfish. They want to know what's in it for them. And I say that because I myself am a blog reader too. When you land on a blog, you're always thinking, what's in it for me? What can I take away from this? Whether it's entertainment, insight, education, whatever it might be, we're always thinking about ourselves when we land on blog posts. So when you're focusing on yourself too much and you're talking about what you did this past weekend or what you wore this week, if it's not relevant to your audience, that you're not giving them a reason to care. Strangers on your site don't know you from Adam. And so when they land on your site, they don't necessarily want to hear about you. They want to hear about something that can benefit them. So try not to focus on yourself too much within your blog, unless it has to do directly with your business. But even then, think through how you're always benefiting your reader. The second blogging pitfall is lack of consistency. You have to set expectations and let people know when they can expect new content from you. So whether you're posting once a month, once a week, once a weekday, just set that pattern and stay consistent. It lets people know when they can come back and read more of your content, and it'll increase your blog traffic for that very reason. The next is that you may have too many blog topics. Are you, for example, for me, I'm guilty of all of these, by the way, if you're making any of these mistakes. When I first started blogging, I shared lifestyle posts and I shared content that would be relevant to bloggers and business owners. So I would share recipes and I would share faith-based posts. And then I would share portfolio projects, and it was all inconsistent with what I was sharing. I had way too many blog topics, so the people who tuned in to hear more about design work probably didn't care about recipes or my faith-based post. People who came to read more about the faith-based post probably didn't care about my design work. So it was confusing for the audience, and people want to return to things that are very relevant to them, blogs that are relevant, not blogs that have too many topics. If you want to be known for doing something and doing something well, then scale down on your blog topics. Think about your business's mission statement and align all of your blog topics to that. So the next one is bland blog post titles. Your blog post titles are your first impression for your audience, along with your blog graphic. So a lot of times when you're sharing it on social media or within your newsletter, whatever it might be, your blog post title is what first gets someone's attention. So a bland blog post title is not going to encourage many click-throughs for people to read your content. Even if you've put so much time and effort into high-quality content, if you have a bland blog post title, you'll lose people right from the start. However, you also don't want to clickbait people. You don't want to say, this blog post is going to absolutely radically change your life, if it really isn't going to absolutely and radically change someone's life. So you don't want to be clickbaiting people and leaving them disappointed when they come to your blog either. But maybe put a little extra time into your blog post titles and make them descriptive. People should know what you're talking about right from the very start. Also, consider not using poor punctuation and grammar. Not only can this be to your detriment if you are a business owner, it can keep people from taking you seriously, but it also has negative effects on SEO. So too many exclamation marks, spelling errors, anything like that can really harm your blog. So consider that as you are planning out your blog content and writing it. The next is looking to other blogs for inspiration and content ideas. I think because blogging, there's so many blogs out there now, especially within certain industries, that it's easy to look to other blogs in your industry for inspiration and content ideas. However, sometimes you can fall into the trap of mimicking other people's content or really not differentiating yourself from others out there. So I would highly encourage you just to take a step back from looking at blogs that you're maybe tempted to follow along with closely and just stop visiting them as often. I know for Ellen Company, when I stopped looking to what others were doing as much and I just focused on what would benefit my audience and drive traffic in that could potentially bring me customers and clients, that's when Ellen Company started to take off and my blog began growing exponentially month after month. So try to steer clear of looking at other blogs too closely. So those are some common blogging pitfalls. And now we're going to move into how to create high quality content. I'm going to check back over to, okay, great. So I'm getting questions now. This is awesome. Okay, the first one, is this webinar going to be available to listen to again? Yes, I'm going to post it. We should be able to have a replay this time. We've switched webinar softwares. So, so yes, the recording should be available to you as soon as right after this webinar is over. And Courtney asks, how long is too long for a blog title? There are differing opinions on this too. Some people, like Jake, is trying to get me to do longer, more descriptive blog post titles. I don't think there's really a science. I think it's Upworthy, maybe, does the really long blog post titles that are really catchy and grab your attention. But if you go too short, you might not get any of those descriptive words in there either. So, so I think it just depends, Courtney. That's something I'd be happy to look into a little bit more and maybe even post about in the future. Anybody else have any other questions before I keep going? All right, I'm gonna keep going and I can come back to them later too. I'm excited to see so many of you in here now. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so how to create high quality content. Like I said, high quality content is what's going to keep people coming back to your site time and time again. We're not going to focus so much on social media and, like I said, other marketing techniques. We're going to focus on what you can be doing first and foremost on your blog to keep people coming back time and time again. Because what we've experienced is that when you pour the time and energy into high quality content, people tend to do the work for you. Once they discover your site, they're going to share it with everyone they know, and then they're going to share it with everyone they know, and then it's just exponential from there. So, how to create high quality content. The first way to create quality content is to focus on how each post is going to benefit your reader. So, like I said before, one of the pitfalls is to focus way too much on yourself. So switch it around and think about how every single post is going to benefit your reader. And that's something that you should ask yourself every time you go to publish a post, or every time you're even brainstorming blog post ideas. Think about how your reader, that selfish reader that's in all of us, is going to benefit from your content. And again, I keep using Ellen Company as an example, but it's the one that's in the forefront of my mind. I'm always thinking of how my content is going to benefit a creative entrepreneur. That's my ideal audience. That's who I'm marketing to. So I want to think through how each and every post, whether it's on using Trello to organize your blog content, or 24 productivity tips, or whatever it might be, how someone's going to be able to walk away from that with some actionable, helpful tips. And again, if you don't know who your ideal customer or your ideal reader is, spend some time thinking that through. I know for my clients, I ask them to give a very in-depth, detailed look at who their ideal reader and who their ideal customer is. And really, it should be the same, one and the same. Your ideal reader should be your ideal customer. Some people even give them a name and a user persona. They talk about how old they are, whether they're male or female, what they do for a living. You can get really specific. And then each time you go to publish a post, you're thinking about, will it benefit that ideal reader, ideal customer? So definitely something to keep in mind. And something that goes along with that is to share relevant content. Is your content relevant to your industry and to your ideal customer? If you are a photographer wanting to boost your blog traffic, you might want to steer clear of a lot of personal posts. Like I said, posts that focus on you don't necessarily win the attention of your ideal reader, and you want it to be relevant to them. So share topics that would be relevant to them instead of maybe even those personal types of posts. Answer common problems and solve common questions, or answer common questions rather and solve common problems. Do you have frequently asked questions? Those questions that you are asked all the time. Do a blog post on it. What's great about doing that is that you can point people back to a blog post, and you can even point people back to that blog post within an FAQ and save the time that it takes to answer that question again and again through emails or blog comments. And focus on solving common problems. What are common problems that your ideal reader faces on a day-to-day basis? Solve those problems for them. Come up with creative ideas and creative ways to solve those problems for them. Those are even some blog post topics right there. FAQs and common problems. That should get you at least 10 blog posts right there. The next one is to focus on actionable takeaways. We all love steps. I write a lot of how-to posts, and maybe I'm like the girl off of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I'm the how-to girl. But people love actionable takeaways. We love steps. We love being able to walk away from something and implementing it right away. So make things easy for your audience and give them actionable takeaways. Provide how-tos. Give them next steps, but focus on action and not necessarily as much even on theory. And I can guarantee you that people will love those posts. Next, follow the 90-10 rule. The 90-10 rule is 90% helpful, actionable, relatable content, and 10% promotional content. So yes, like I said before, your blog is great because it helps you market your products and your services, but you don't want to be doing that within every single post. You want to be first and foremost benefiting your audience, and that's how you're going to catch their attention and get them to care about your products and services in the first place. And even within that 10%, I would recommend still focusing on your reader. Even if you're promoting your products, that's just good marketing anyway. Not to focus so much on you and your business, but how it's going to help the person on the other end and why they should care. So for example, when I share my portfolio posts, it's a little bit of a promotional post for me. It's showing my work, and hopefully people are viewing it, and potential customers are viewing it and they want to work with me. And I usually get a lot of inquiries right after I post a new project. However, I want even those posts to be helpful for my audience. So I usually go in depth about the design process from start to finish and give an inside look. And for you running a creative business, I found that many people appreciate creativity, especially when they don't consider themselves creative, or if it's in another field that they don't feel creative in. So this is another blog post idea. Write it down. Share your process, even within your portfolio posts or any of those promotional posts. Give people an inside look or a sneak peek. We all love transparency. So follow the 90-10 rule. And I just said this, exercise transparency is the last bullet point for how to create high quality content. Like I said, people love sneak peeks. They love behind the scenes. They love figuring out how you're doing what you're doing. So share it with them. I think one of the hang-ups about exercising transparency and sharing what's working for you is that you're afraid that other people in your industry might come in and start doing the same thing and maybe take away some of your business or provide even more competition. But the truth is that in our experience, we haven't seen any trouble with this. In fact, the benefits of exercising transparency have been numerous. We've been able to build trust with our audience, and trust is key, especially when you're trying to market your products and your services. So exercising transparency helps our audience trust us more. So start to exercise transparency. Don't underestimate the different qualities that your business has that nobody else has. And chances are, if you're sharing something that's worked for you, some people still won't be able to implement it. And those who do are already going to be a couple steps behind you anyway. So I would highly encourage exercising transparency on your blog. Before we move into getting visitors, how to get visitors to return, I'm going to jump back over. All right. I'm going to jump back over to the chat, and I'm going to change this around so that you can actually see me. All right. So if you have any other questions up until now, whether it's common blogging pitfalls, whether it's how to create high quality content, like I said, this is really low key and relaxed, so feel free to use that chat. And hi, Sarah, thanks for joining in. I'm sorry for the confusion over the timing of the webinar and starting late. We are still getting the hang of it and switched webinar software, so thank you for bearing with us. Does anybody have any other questions before I move on? It's a little quiet over here. I might jump on back. What I'll do is I'll finish up the presentation, and then I'm going to leave a little bit longer time for Q&A at the end. So let me go into sharing my screen again. All right. Okay, so now that you've done the work of producing high quality content, really focusing on that ideal audience, now here are a few ways that you can get those visitors to return. It's much easier to retain readers than it is to find new readers. So you want to hook them once they visit your site for the first time, and here are a few ways to do that. The first, like I mentioned before, is posting consistently. You want to set those expectations. You want to give people an idea of when they can return and see more content from you, see new content from you. So be sure to post on a consistent basis, whether it is once a week, twice or 3 times a week, or multiple times a week, whenever it is. You post consistently. Next, fill up your archives and make them easily accessible. When you post content, it can be a little disheartening once you post more content and all of those hours that you spent working on a post get buried behind new posts. So the great thing about archives is that if you make them accessible and people can easily find them and access them, they can access all of those old posts. So it's kind of a no-brainer that you should be sharing those archives and pointing people back to your content. Another reason that this is really helpful is that when new people land on your site, you want to familiarize them with your business. You want to have full archives so that you're giving people a reason to stick around, hang out on your site. The longer they get to know you, probably the more trust you build with them, and the more likely they're going to come back later. I've received a lot of great tweets lately, and it usually makes my day, of someone who's landed on my site for the first time and spends 3 hours in my archives. That's awesome. And that's what you want for your blog too. So fill up your archives, keep consistently pumping out content, and make your archives available to people. Put it in your sidebar. You might even put it in a drop down. But just make it so that people are easily going back to your old posts and hanging out more often. So for example, we started a second blog called The Collaborative last month, and it features other entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, and experts in this industry, and it highlights them through guest posts. And so we made it available, we made the archives available on the little drop down. And now people can see all of the most recent posts at a glance. So that's been a success, and we've seen a lot of traffic on that site since we've done that and made the archives, or we've seen a lot more traffic on that page rather, by pointing people to our archives. Next, link to posts within posts. So when you have a blog post, for example, this one, point back to the old content that you have. I shared about how I implement my 2-week design process, and I did a video last week or the week before, Friday before, and right off the bat, if people weren't familiar with my 2-week design process, I just pointed them back to that post. So find reasons and maybe even sneak in some other blog posts that might be helpful and relevant to your readers when they land on other posts on your site. Next, share related posts at the end of blog posts. I know this is a common feature that you probably see on a lot of blogs, but it's there for good reason. When people have taken the time to read your post and they get all the way to the end of your post, they probably really enjoyed that post. So share related posts at the end. Keep them clicking around your site. Really utilize calls to action. You don't want somebody to land at a dead end and then probably X off your site or exit your site. You want to have calls to action and keep leading them around your website. Remember that the longer they're on your site, the more you're building trust with them and the more likely they are to return. So share related posts. Ellen companies look like this. This was at the bottom of a business related post. So I sorted my posts according to the business category, and they might be interested in reading some of these at the end of that post. Also, place search bars in prominent places. If someone has come to your site and they've, for example, with Ellen Company, our 50 blog post ideas are a very common blog post for us. So if they came before and they read that post and they liked it, but they don't remember all of those post ideas, they come back to our site, they can easily find the search bar and enter in 50 blog post ideas, and chances are they'll find it. So don't underestimate the power of a search bar. You can place it in your blog sidebar, your home page, and even at the top of your archives like we've done here. Or if your archives keep growing and growing, there's going to be a lot of scrolling going on, and if someone's looking for a particular post, they can easily search for it at the top of your archives page. And, oops, let's go back. So not only make search bars easily accessible, but also make your archives and categories easily accessible. I already talked about this a little bit with your archives, but also with your categories. Someone lands on your site and they are really enjoying one post that's in a specific category. Make it easily accessible for them to look at all the other posts in that category. And again, another Ellen Company example in our sidebar, all of our categories are listed with these fun icons. A lot of people in Google recently have been typing in Squarespace and finding Ellen Company. So if that's the case, they can easily click on that Squarespace button and see all of our Squarespace posts at a glance. So do the same for yours. People might come to your site if you're a blogger who focuses on nutrition and exercise. People might come looking for workouts. So you might have a category for workouts and they can click there and see all of your workouts at a glance. It improves the user experience and it helps people find your old posts easily. So I know I ran through that a little quicker than I was hoping to since we got started a little later. But I'll take this time for a little Q&A. And also if someone is stumped as to why their blog isn't growing, if you could identify with all of these points and you're doing all of these things, take some time to tell me about it. Like I said, I want this time to really focus on you and be helpful for you. I want it to be a little more interactive and a little more low-key than some of our other content, even a blog post. So I'm going to stop screen sharing here and use that chat feature. Great. So Courtney already has a question. She says, as far as creating powerful content, what do you think about multimedia content, like videos, podcasts, ebooks? I feel like a lot of blogs are heading in a more varied direction. How much should we worry about that if we're still figuring out niche, audience, etc.? I think switching up content is a really smart idea, actually. Podcasts, like you said, videos, people are on the go a lot now, and people have a lot going on. People are very busy, and so for them to sit and watch a 3-minute video and get the same amount of content as a blog post can be really helpful. I know not everyone prefers that, but I think diversifying your content can be really helpful. And that's something that we've been focusing on with Ellen Company as well, trying to do more webinars and videos and things like that. And I think if you're showing your face and people are hearing your voice, they're more likely to engage with you a little bit more too. So I think it's great to focus on different content. And you're right, you do see blogs heading more in that direction. And if you're still figuring out your niche and your audience, experiment with your content. So experiment with videos and podcasts. See what works best. You might be a little surprised. For Ellen Company, I was posting about all those different blog topics and started a blog series on how to start a blog. And it gained a lot of traction. I was really stunned and blown away, actually. And Jake and I started to take a step back and we were like, oh my goodness, we didn't realize that all these bloggers were following along with us. And then it just kind of took off from there. So experiment, you might be surprised. Kristen asks, how would you suggest to best increase newsletter awareness with blog posts? Should we include it at the bottom of blog post as a call to action? Absolutely. If you want to point more people to your newsletter and grow your mailing list, you might want to have an opt-in at the bottom of every blog post. You might do a pop-up so that people see it and they're aware. I would also highly suggest creating a page on your website specifically for your newsletter so that you can link directly back to it. If you don't, you can't link to it within social media or anything else. So create a newsletter page, tell people what they can expect. I think that helps people understand what they're going to get from you and they're more likely to sign up. So I think using your mailing list is a great way to grow your newsletter. And thank you, Courtney. Courtney said she would listen to an Ellen Company podcast. I appreciate that. Who knows? Maybe that's in the future. All right. Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne. It's good to see you joining in. She says, how do you make sure to set your business/blog apart when you follow a path that a lot of other people do? That is a great question. Like I said earlier in the webinar, I think it's really helpful to stop following along with people that you follow along with too closely. Like I said, Ellen Company began to grow when we stopped looking so much at what other people were doing, and we focused mainly on our ideal audience and really thought about what's going to benefit them. How can we produce content that is relevant to them, that's helpful, that's transparent, and that helped us become more distinct and one of a kind. Exercising transparency is something that a lot of people don't do. So I would highly suggest exercising transparency if you aren't already. And think about the things that you're good at and the differences that you have. Think through what sets you apart from others in your industry and really highlight that. For me, not many bloggers and business owners are also designers. Or yes, bloggers and business owners are designers, but people sharing blogging and business tips aren't necessarily designers. And designers don't necessarily share blogging and business tips. So that's something that sets Ellen Company apart and makes it a little bit different. So just think through your strengths and highlight those in your blog posts. Great question. You're welcome, Kristen. Surely there are other questions here, and I'm more than happy. We have a few more minutes here. So feel free to ask more questions about blogging. This is one of my favorite topics. Kristen just came in with a question. She says, the wedding photography market has become pretty oversaturated. I can see that, and I would agree. One thing I truly believe is that what makes you different in the market is you. So while yes, you should blog with photos to bring in potential clients and show your work, how do you balance that with a personal post? She says, in this case, would you recommend including more personal posts to try to relate with your potential clients, or stick with the traditional blog with photos? This is a tough one too. And just like Suzanne said, for how to differentiate your business, I would still first and foremost, and I think actually I see a lot of people in the photography industry doing this. They're sharing a lot of personal posts. And while it might make it a little more relatable, it can actually harm your business because people aren't necessarily going there to learn about your family or learn about those kinds of things. They more want to see what you're capable of, that you know what you're doing, especially if you're a wedding photographer. They want to be able to trust you on their wedding day. So show that you're experienced. Think about those common questions that they have. Think about some frequently asked questions that you're asked. Like I said, turn those into blog posts. And naturally, some personal experiences might come up. You might share an experience of something that happened on a wedding day or something like that. But in order to get people to care about you, and you need to really play up your expertise. So I remember when I was doing a more lifestyle blog and trying to gain traffic and gain clients, Jake was saying, people don't care about you. These are strangers. They don't know you. And why shouldn't they care about you? You have to give them a reason to care. And so I started to focus more on my strengths in my business and why people would want to work with me. And then they began to care more about Jake, or what I like to do on the weekends, or where I find inspiration, or things like that. But that's a great question. I hope that's helpful for you, Kristen. Oh, and Jake's tuning in too. Speaking of Jake, he also says, have you considered blogging about your equipment, style, etc., which is also a great point. Share about the equipment that you use. Just share things that are going to highlight your expertise in your industry and things that set you apart. Because a lot of it is you that separates it, but you also want to show that you're more than capable of what you're doing. Building trust. Chelsea asks if her questions are showing up. Oh, can you please give me some examples of good and bad blog post titles? So I'm sorry I missed that one, Chelsea. Some good examples. Well, so for example, when I first started blogging more about business and blogging, I loved following along with Young House Love, and I loved their short, witty blog post titles, and so I tried to follow suit. What I didn't realize was that they have a really big blog audience who are familiar with them. and they weren't trying to grow their blog at the rate that I was. They didn't need to at the time. So they could get away with some clever, witty blog post titles or song lyrics. They would use song lyrics. And I tried to do the same. Doesn't work. People like numbers. People like how-tos. Some people don't prefer them, but they work. The majority of people really like them. I tried to do, this is really embarrassing, but I already mentioned it in a blog post, so I don't mind saying it again. I tried to do a witty wrap-up. How people do weekly wrap-ups and things like that of what they've been doing in their business. And I did it to the tune of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I called it the weekly wrap-up, but I did RAP. It was silly. So focus first and foremost on high quality content, and then think about descriptive words that you can add into your blog post titles, use numbers, things like that. All right, I'm going to scroll back down now. Great. So Kristen says that was helpful. I'm so glad. Are there any other questions? I know we have one more minute. I don't mind going a few minutes over. What I'm going to go ahead and do while you all might be typing some questions, I want to give you all a takeaway from this webinar, especially for those of you who are tuning in live and have dealt with our webinar issues today. I want to give you access to our blog calendar workbook. This is included in the Ellen Company library, but I'm giving it to you for free. And so I'm typing in the link right now for you to go and grab it. See if I can blog and type at the same time. I think that's right. Let me double check just to be sure. Wouldn't want to give you the wrong link. This will be up for 24 hours. I'm going to delete it tomorrow, this page. But for those of you tuning in live, you'll be able to follow this link. It'll help you plan out your blog content. It will help you, here we go. Told you I can't do two things at once. There we go. Should be popping up now. It has a section for brainstorming content. It has a section for planning out content. It even has checklists for different stages of your blog process. So I hope that you really take use of that blog calendar. Feel free to save it and use it over and over again. Good, I'm glad you're excited about this. Rachel Cox says that she remembers the Ellen Company days of me rapping within blog posts. Thank you for still sticking with me this whole time, Rachel. That means a lot. That's a loyal reader right there. And Suzanne says, do you recommend to start narrowing down topics? I think she means now, and then later spread your items out when you're starting a business or a blog, or the opposite? That's a great question too. Suzanne's on a roll with harder questions to answer. I think that you should start off pretty narrow with your ideal customer in mind, and then you always have an experimental phase where you're trying to see what works and what doesn't, what you enjoy posting about, what gets a lot of feedback. You never know until you get started. So keep it narrow and really try to hone in on that ideal audience. But like I said, you might be surprised as you try out different blog topics and categories and the like. So start narrow, but be open to changing things as you go. Blog titles. Okay, good. Mariana, I'm sorry for all the confusion. I'm going to post a replay at the end of this so you can catch up on everything that you may have missed out on. A lot of you are asking for help with blog post titles, and I'm going to go ahead and find this helpful post, an Ellen Company post that I did on blog titles. Creating catchy blog post titles is what it's called. This is when it's helpful to have that search feature. One moment. While you're bearing with me, I'll find that for you. I covered it a little bit in today's webinar, but not too much. So this might be helpful for you. And for those of you who are watching this replay later, if you go into the search bar on the Ellen Company blog sidebar and type in creating catchy headlines, you should find it. So it's right there. And good, I'm glad that you all are enjoying this blog calendar. I hope that it comes in handy for you, and I hope you like it. Are there any other questions before I jump off? Because I know it's a little bit after 1 o'clock my time, but trying to make up for the time that I lost at the beginning of the webinar. So Mariana says, I listened to the webinar last week. Thank you for bearing with us then too. And thought I'd narrow my blog to photography and behind the scenes. I don't know if I'll gain new followers, but I can try. That's exactly right. Like I said, a lot of it is experimentation and trying out what works and what doesn't. Like I said, you might be surprised, so just be open to change. Is that all for today? All right, I think so. I'm going to call it quits there. If you have any other questions, feel free to send me an email, write a blog post, comment. I love interaction. If you enjoyed this and you want to learn more about boosting your blog traffic and increasing your traffic, we cover it every week within our Ellen Company newsletter. We share tips and strategies that we're using to grow Ellen Company blog traffic. So feel free to, I think there might even be a button on your screen below where it says get more content. You can click there and sign up for our newsletter if you aren't already. But I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, thank you for bearing with me, and we'll post information about the next LChat soon. See you later.